So far we've talked a little bit about plot and how to do some other things, and I think it's probably a good time to get to know your character a little bit more. So let's talk about character profiles. Hi, I'm Hananya Leclerc. I am a multi-genre writer who shares tips and tricks and talks about her life. Now, without further ado, let's get into the video. So what even is a character profile can be determined kind of in different ways by different people, but what I consider a character profile to be is kind of any information you want to write down about your character that can help you write your story. There is bound to be a lot of different kind of templates for you if you are looking for that. If you do a quick search online, I'm sure you'll find tons of different templates for a character profile. There is also a character profile kind of listed in Scrivener if you use that as your writing software. You can also probably find a character profile in there, and what I personally use is nothing. I don't usually create character profiles, but I do kind of want to get more into that. What some of the stuff is that you can include on your character profile is, for example, like physical traits. So you can write down like hair color, eye color, maybe skin color if that's something that you want to kind of outline, and just kind of their mannerisms, maybe if they constantly pick at their nails or if they constantly crack their fingers, if that is something that your character does, or maybe they will have certain things that they need to do before they leave the house, so they always need to like touch the side of the door, or maybe that's for like a plane, always touch a plane before you go into the plane, like stuff like that. Little things that make someone a little bit more human, maybe if you want to call it that, that can help you kind of create a full character that feels real. So kind of little mannerisms and little things can help with that as well. Some of the things that you might also want to write down is character traits, as in if they're always kind of the positive one, or if they're the pessimistic one, or maybe they are more so the always supporting friend, or maybe they have a romantic outlook on life and they always see everything through rose-colored glasses, you know, like stuff like that you might want to write down as well. That can kind of help you make sure that you stick with that person's kind of personality and stuff like that, so that that person is authentic throughout the book, right? And you don't want to have this character always bite their nails first and then, you know, like maybe later cracks their fingers, because that's like, well, didn't they do this before and why are they now doing this? So you kind of want to create something that is consistent throughout, right? So you want to kind of make sure you have that feeling and you have that as your character. As I have never really created character profiles before necessarily, I feel like I probably struggle with this. I think the thing that I struggle with most in different characters is character voice. So what I think I'm gonna write down is maybe some key words or key phrases that these characters say a lot. So for example, if my one character will say like a lot, then I will include that in their dialogue. If someone is very expressive in their way of using curse words, I will include that as kind of the thing, or maybe their favorite curse words, or maybe just their favorite words in general. If I have some things that they say a lot or something that they reference a lot, you can also put that in. So if you have a character that's, for example, a very big movie buff and they quote movies, put that into their character profile so that you can kind of reference that back. And those are kind of the things that I would say also go in. If you kind of want to expand your character profile, you can also include things like their inner goals and needs and wants, or maybe their external goals and needs and wants, stuff like that, things that are going to affect the character. You can even include a character kind of history and background into these character profiles. It kind of really depends on how big you want to make this. And I can't really tell you what to do or what not to do, but kind of whatever is going to help you create this character and is going to help you write this character into your book is a nice idea. It can also help when you're revising and you're going back and you're like, what was this person's eye color again? Or even if you describe it in the first kind of few pages and then come back to it and think, what was that? And instead of having to go back to your actual written word, which is what I've done plenty of time, you can actually grab these character profiles and just kind of glance at it and be, okay, this is the thing, and then move on, and not spend as much time trying to search for the exact point in the book where you referenced it. If you have a lot of characters, this can also simply help you keep track of the names, because that is definitely something that I have done before. I tend to not create extensive character profiles in general anyway. There is one book, which is Project Sky. If you've been around on my channel, you've heard me talk about this before, but Project Sky is one of the ones I feel I've fleshed out the most in different things that I've researched and different things that I've put down to paper as for the character profiles. So for that specific book, I have character profiles on kind of the main characters, and then I have a document in Scrivener with a character profile for non-main characters, so like the secondary characters and characters that may appear like 3 or 4 times throughout the book, but I do want to reference them by name. I will write down kind of a character profile for them just with the name and kind of their role in this book. So for that book specifically, I, for example, have a driver that comes back. I want to make sure I reference his name. I have, for example, a tour manager. I have someone at the label, because my characters are artists, at least the female the female character is artist, and then we have a male character that's also an artist. So I have them have like labels and managers and tour managers and like stuff like that. So I kind of want to be able to reference those throughout the book, but they're not going to be in every single chapter or every single scene. So I want to make sure I reference them with the correct name once I get to there, because I have definitely messed up before with those. So it can help you keep track of simply names as well. So in general, character profiles just kind of serve you as the writer to kind of keep track of all the characters that you have in your book, even if they're not the main characters. So things that you can also, for example, include if you just want to create character profiles for the main characters is name, age, maybe their location, occupation, so what kind of job do they have, or are they a student, or kind of what they do in life. Maybe aspirations, so what their goal in life could be. Some family information, so you can write down if they have father, mother, maybe 2 mothers, 2 fathers, whatever you want to do, and write down if they have siblings, maybe their ages as well, so you can see kind of who is the oldest, who's the youngest, what was the reference of this family, kind of create a family tree if that's something that you want to do. You can kind of think about the external kind of way that they look, so you can say hair color, eye color, kind of what their face looks like. So you can even say if they have an angel face, or maybe they have a resting beep face. You know, there's different things that you could do to see what kind of they look like. Maybe you want to write down their build as well, and kind of say if they're, you know, like very sporty, not sporty, what they do for fun, so like some hobbies that they do, or some things that they like to do in their free time. So also think about kind of those things, what they are maybe appreciative of in the world. So maybe they really appreciate like architecture, or maybe they really appreciate nature, or maybe they're a big animal lover, and you can have them kind of look at a different animal when they're like walking down the street, and it's like, oh, look at that cute puppy, or oh, look at that beautiful butterfly. Like, it can be whatever you want, and that is just gonna make your character a little bit more real if you include like little things in that. Don't try to overdo it and include like tons of information and make your character do all these different things, because you don't necessarily always have a person that is interested in everything. Like, yes, we can do that obviously, and I'm also very interested in a lot of different things, but there's also going to be things that I'm like, yeah, don't really care about that too much. Maybe that's what you want to write down as well, so that if, for example, characters run into someone that's very passionate about it, you can kind of reference and be like, well, maybe they are not as passionate about that, so then that could cause conflict, or that could be like, maybe not, kind of way of interacting with this person. You can also say how they kind of speak, so if they would have very stiff dialogue, or if they are very like formal or informal with their speech, kind of things like that, that are going to help you create this character in a written form, and not just someone that probably lives in your head for a little bit before you write it down on the page. It can help you kind of get a feel for what this person is about and who this person is. Some people even like to do kind of a personality test for their characters, so they will fill in a personality test from a character's point of view. That can give you kind of insight in how people would react in certain situations and give you kind of a overview of responses, or maybe if they're more drawn back or if they're more of an outgoing person, introvert, like stuff like that. You can also kind of get a feel for that if that is something that you want to do in those type of things. If you're still kind of a little bit unsure of who your characters are, you can also find like questionnaires online to kind of get to know a certain person. So you can fill out kind of what would be their favorite books, or what would be their favorite meal, or what would be kind of their likes and dislikes, and that in kind of different degrees as well. So not just maybe, oh, they like this color or they like this book, but it can also be deeper meanings of like, okay, they really like it when it's like acts of kindness, so like love languages, or maybe it's like they really like this specific brand, or maybe they like whatever. But it can also be kind of internal things of, okay, well, I really like it when someone comes up and just does an act of kindness for me, or maybe they enjoy hugging, maybe they don't enjoy hugging, like what kind of physical contact are they okay with. There are so many different things that I can think of that are rambling through my mind right now, but include anything you kind of want, really. There is tons of different resources out there. I can make sure I leave like a link to one of the resources that I have found, and that way hopefully it will help you to get to know your character a little bit more and figure that out. If you're wondering how many characters you should include these character profiles for, it's really up to you what you feel comfortable with. I would say do kind of detailed ones for your main characters. So maybe if you have a protagonist and an antagonist, definitely do it for those. And then maybe some secondary ones that are really going to affect kind of the B story that we went over. So people that are really going to affect and move the story forward, you can have those. If they're coming around maybe a couple times in the book, but not really like all the time, you might want to not create an as extensive character profile. It kind of depends really on what your preference is, but that was something that was recommended to me, to not include an extensive character profile on every single character that's in the book, because some are just going to be there for like a little bit here and there and not necessarily have their own arc. So that is also a good way to kind of measure, okay, do they have their own transformation, their own arc? Then you might want to, because they're going to be quote unquote more important. I don't really want to say more important or less important, because I feel every character in their own way is important to the story, otherwise they wouldn't be there. But kind of think about which characters are going to affect your story the most, or even if that is not necessarily a criteria that you're worried with, just kind of see, okay, well, what kind of information do I need to know about these people? Do I really need to know their favorite brand of cookies? If not, then just leave that out. Just kind of see what would fit with your kind of character and what you're looking for in these character profiles, and what you're looking for to know about your character before you can write the book. In some settings, for example, it might make sense to know the cookie brand if that is something that you want to reference later in the book, but in other settings that's not gonna, you know, make sense. In some settings it might make sense that you include like their favorite weapon of choice if they're, for example, in maybe an army or something like that, or they're assassins and they, you know, have a favorite weapon that they use. Then you might want to include that and not include the cookie brand, because that might not make sense for your story. What you can do, however, for the characters that might not come around as much, write down their names, their age, maybe even like hair color, eye color, like a little bit of a short, okay, this is who they are, this is what they look like, and maybe one or two of like, okay, they are kind of this kind of person, so they're loving and kind, or maybe they're like a little bit more stern and not as like approachable when you meet them at first, or something like that. That is going to give you kind of a good sense, okay, well, this is who they are, name, age, whatever they do for occupation maybe, and this is kind of what they look like and how they present themselves as a person when you first meet them. And hopefully with that you can kind of keep track of your whole cast of this book and kind of keep track of some details. If you're starting to write and you realize that some information is missing, just go back and add it. There's always developing in story writing, so don't think that this is set in stone, or if you want to change something, you can change it, because you can. This is your book, you get to write it the way that you want to write it. And these can just maybe help you. It doesn't necessarily have to hinder you, you know? This is meant to be helpful. If you're writing a book that kind of includes a lot of battle scenes, or maybe, you know, people not necessarily making it to the end of the book, that is something that you can also, for example, include in this character profiles, or even in like maybe a different kind of overview where you say, okay, well, this person and this person meet each other here and here, and then when they come here and here, this person doesn't continue on because they're, you know, not here. But it kind of depends on what kind of story you're writing, what information is going to be useful to you. You might even have different kind of information next to your character profiles that would be more kind of timeline related maybe. Now, I did mention Scrivener kind of as a program that I use and a software that I use, and there are character profiles in there. I know that there's also other softwares out there that can help you create character profiles. If you're more of a visual person, you might want to design your character in, for example, a game, or maybe online in some like generators and stuff for characters, then that can help you kind of get the physical traits. If you're more of a visual person that wants to really see them come to life in like a visual representation of your character, then you could also do that. If you have any questions or suggestions, make sure you leave them in the comments down below so that we can all see them and I can reply to them. I try to reply to every single comment that at least gets left on my videos, so I will get to them at some point for sure. And if you've enjoyed this video, then please consider giving it a like and subscribe as well if you're wanting to watch the rest of this series coming along. And with that being said, click here if you want to see the next video.